Hey everyone, it's Argonath here from The Right Way, and a new article has come up about how Melbourne is doing in Victoria, which is seeing an increasing number of cases happening. Um, so this is a bit about what life is like currently in Melbourne, and it sounds like a place that I wouldn't want to live in, even though New Zealand is kind of heading that way as well, which is pretty scary. So Delta outbreak, Melbourne embraced zero COVID, now isolated as world bounces back. So you see places like US, India, Singapore, all these other countries are starting to open back up again because they've got their vaccination rates high, and the citizens are now enjoying more freedoms, whereas places like Victoria in Australia and also New Zealand is starting to lock down again when they were looking at the other countries quite a few months ago, thinking that we were better off, but we're not. So let's have a read. It's very interesting what's going on in Australia and how it's becoming a totalitarian police state. It's quite scary how quickly this has happened, and the loss of democracy in Australia as well. So this, I think this is from the Daily Telegraph UK. So New Zealand Herald must have paid the rights to publish this article. It's a bright cold day in October. The clocks are striking 9. That's the time when residents in my hometown of Melbourne, Australia must obey a curfew or face crushing fines for breaching health orders. It's not quite Orwell's Oceania, but Australia's second city shares some alarming similarities to the totalitarian regime from 1984. So basically they have a curfew after 9 p.m. You're not allowed outside for, at least you have an extremely valid reason. Melbourne holds the dubious record of being the most locked down city in the world, 260 days and counting. Wow, it's almost a year. Watching television footage from Italy, India, New York, and even London at the peak of their outbreaks terrified many Australians into relinquishing all their civil liberties. And that's exactly what's happened in New Zealand as well. Basically, the government and the corrupt media have been pushing COVID fear porn all over the country so that people will happily give away their liberties in the hopes that we won't have a massive COVID outbreak in New Zealand after our very initial. I was happy with the very initial lockdown in 2020 because it got it under control. We were able to live for about a year without any COVID in the community. But now we just can't do that, right? There's just no way of putting it back in the bottle. We're going to have to learn to live with it. But all of our health experts and people are just pushing the fear out to people. And they're saying even if we get to 90% vaccination, we might not still have our full liberties back again. What's going on there? What's the point of getting vaccinated then? Unlike the UK, where advice is formulated by SAGE, well, I assume that's some sort of group which gives the advice to the government, Australian state health officers issue restrictions without explaining the science underpinning them. Many experts doubt that rules like curfews curb COVID at all. All cases in locked down Melbourne reached a record high of 2,300 per day. Officials in Sydney ended lockdown early after a vaccination drive. The reason for the spike is that Melbourne's lockdown fatigue citizens are secretly breaking all the rules, even those that actually work. Well, that's the thing that's the thing with these lockdowns, right? You can only do it for so long, and then people, if they're going to be put in like a prison, they're going to start breaking the rules. Right? You just cannot lock down people for that long and expect them to just comply all the friggin' time. So it's just not going to happen. So good on Sydney for ending their lockdown early, and I'm hoping that eventually, well, hopefully soon, this idiotic New Zealand government will actually see the writing on the wall and start to open our country back up again as well. Democracy has crumbled under zero COVID, with Parliament shut for months under health orders. The twitching curtain brigade, encouraged by government campaigns urging them to inform on their neighbours, watch for rule breakers, and use special hotlines to summon the police. Melbourne police were recently ordered to patrol playgrounds until a public outcry forced a U-turn. In a park near me, children on scooters flee as police cars pull up. It's like a scene from Robocop. That's incredible. I mean, imagine that. Kids are just out playing in the playground, and then police roll up to try and what are they going to do? Arrest them or something? I don't know. and then the kids scoot away. So this is how it starts, right? The government starts certain parts of the population to start snitching and telling on other parts of the population. So you start segregating parts of society out, and that's how things started back in the 30s and 40s in Germany as well. Not saying it's going to go that way, but that's how things started. All right, and things can quickly escalate from there. So we really don't want that, and we've seen some of this kind of stuff happening in New Zealand as well. Masks are mandatory outdoors, even if walking on a windswept beach or a deserted street. That seems a bit ridiculous, right? If you're exactly by yourself, there's no one in, a lot of distance to you, why should you have to wear a mask? Those caught disobeying may be fined, handcuffed, forcibly masked, and arrested if they refuse to comply. I did another video of this, of an Australian getting arrested. You might want to go and watch that if you haven't seen that. It's really, really interesting. And you should go and watch that video. In another Orwellian twist, health orders banning protests are issued by bureaucrats reporting to the very leaders the protesters are demonstrating against. Of course they're going to do that, right? So, yep, just use the health orders to ban protests against yourself. That's typically what a totalitarian regime actually does. Protest organizers, including a pregnant woman, have been arrested in their homes and hit with conspiracy charges. Religious worship, even in small groups outdoors, has been banned. This is incredible. I didn't know it had actually gone this bad in Melbourne. My God, I just hope that does not come to New Zealand. Getting into Australia has been near impossible. Getting out requires a North Korea-style exit permit. So why can you not leave Australia, right? So if you have the COVID or you don't have the COVID, why can you not leave Australia? That's ridiculous. If you can leave Australia and you're not intending to come back, or you're going to wait until you're able to come back later on, then that should be fine. Border closures have separated families and caused untold hardship. Babies have died, unable to access urgent medical attention to the nearest hospital across the locked state border. That is absolutely criminal. These policy decision makers should be taken to court for that. Thousands of holidaymakers who were travelling when the border closures were imposed have been made homeless, some having to sleep in cars or live in months in refugee-style campsites, unable to return home even if they are double vaccinated. That's ridiculous as well. Surely they can quarantine at home for 14 days if they've been double vaccinated. There should be no issue for them returning back home. These rule makers are just absolutely insane, right? And if and generally the health so-called experts are complicit with them because they've been raised to celebrity status. They want to keep it going because they know that once COVID becomes endemic, they're just going to have to crawl back to where they came out of because no one's going to give a shit as to what these experts are actually saying. Some have been prevented from visiting dying relatives in other cities, yet state leaders have held firm, only lifting interstate bans for celebrities and sports stars. Of course, the elites, right? So all these left-wing nut jobs who go on about all this woke agenda, but they're all happy to support their elite people, right? So all of these administrators who are left-wing, they are just elites. They don't care about the common people. Don't vote for these people, right? Kick them out at the next election. That's what you need to do. Many abroad envy Australians, believing we have escaped the worst of the pandemic, but the true cost of our lockdown policy is yet to be fully understood. While deaths has remained low, other metrics paint a disastrous picture. Psychologists and GPs report a surge in substance abuse, eating disorders, domestic and child abuse, truancy, depression, anxiety, and self-harm. Even high vaccine uptake may not protect the most vulnerable from COVID, let alone the other illnesses that could ravage Australia due to the immunity debt caused by much lower exposure to other viruses. So that's the thing, all of these lockdowns, we now don't have the natural immunity that we once had to other types of flus as well. So once we open back up, that's going to be a lot bigger. While Sydney opens up, some states are still pursuing doomed zero COVID policies. The irony is that flights between Sydney and London will resume long before Australians can travel freely in their own country. Imagine that. You'll be able to fly between Sydney and London, but you can't fly from Sydney to Melbourne. How ridiculous is that? So there you go. That paints a very bleak picture of the totalitarian police state that is operating in Victoria. Let's hope that it eventually, all the people just need to do is just say, F the rules, go out, live your life, let the virus spread if you're double vaccinated. If you're not double vaccinated, then just stay at home. You can lock down yourself. It's not a problem, right? Let the other people live their lives. Anyway, that's what I think. What do you think? Do you actually live in Melbourne? Let me know if you do. What is it like? Do you think that New Zealand will also end up this way as well? Looking at how we're going, if you live in New Zealand, I would be interested to know. So let me know in the comments section. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't like this video, you're welcome to give it a thumbs down. If you like my content, please give me a subscription. It just helps my content to be noticed by the YouTube algorithm. And hopefully I will catch you in the next video.